To make switching to the new Boost Mobile risk-free, we're offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
So why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Because you have nothing to lose. Boost Mobile is offering a 30-day money-back guarantee.
No, I asked why wouldn't you switch from Verizon or T-Mobile?
Oh.
Wouldn't.
Because you love wasting money as a way to punish yourself because your mother never showed you enough love as a child?
Whoa. Easy there.
Yeah.
Applies to online activations. Requires port in and auto pay. Customers activating in stores may be charged non-refundable activation fees.
So good, so good, so good.
Just in and so good. Thousands of winter deals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of fresh reasons to rack.
Because we get the latest trends for way less.
Because I've been looking for these.
Because the best deals go fast.
Save big with up to 60% off. Sam Edelman, Sorel, Free People, Cole Haan, and more cold weather finds. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Hello and welcome to mini episode 397 of Real Life Ghost Stories, and I have 4 spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 4th of October 2024, and story number 1 comes from Kate. I'm one of those people who seem to attract the dead, so much so that my family won't let me go where there has been a known recent death. I've been called a star child, and one Reiki friend tells me I'm an elf. I don't believe that one for certain. My grandmother says my gifts are from our Irish side. I have been known to predict things that have come to pass and was ostracised by peers because of it. When I was a young girl, we lived in an old house in St. Louis, Missouri, known for being haunted. There were 2 instances that stuck with me. I was the last to leave for school, and my bus rarely came to my stop. On one particular day, I went back home from not getting picked up and tried to unlock the door and it wouldn't unlock. So I went to the back and tried that door, which also refused to unlock. I repeated this twice more, and on my way back to the back door the last time, I stepped on a rusty nail which went through my foot. I limped to the front door and it stood wide open. I had to stay there the rest of the day by myself, unable to walk properly, feeling at the ghost's mercy. Another time I went to shut off the lights in the house, and I have OCD, so I checked the lights a few times. The last time, because of the incident, I turned to look at the living room, and there stood a completely white, the actual colour, not Caucasian, woman doubled over like she was crippled, with long stringy white hair and twisted teeth and long gnarly fingernails. She ran at me screaming. I bolted out the door, and luckily my bus came that day. I've never known what to call her, but I've always considered her a form of banshee because that night we found out our grandmother had breast cancer. We've had so many stories from the house, and I can send more, but she's been on my mind lately. I've often wondered if anyone else has experienced her. So here's the thing, I wouldn't say she was a banshee. So if you've got a banshee attached to your family, she will not just appear to one particular person within the family, right? As far as I'm aware, she generally doesn't appear anyway. Often people don't see the banshee, they hear her. And the banshee's job is not to frighten people, it's not to run at people. She's not there to make people feel uncomfortable or afraid. She's just there to herald death, and she is there to cry and grieve along with the family. So she will appear in the couple of days before somebody dies. So if you hear the banshee, or if in much rarer cases you see and hear the banshee, someone will die within the next couple of days. So the banshee really, as an entity, she's distant but also like instantaneous, if that makes sense. She's distant in that she's generally not seen, and she's instantaneous in that the death immediately follows within a couple of days. So I don't think this is a banshee. However, there are stories about this entity that is called, the hag, and she's called different things in different cultures, but she is commonly known as the hag. And she's often seen in sleep paralysis instances as well, and is often described as being like having long stringy hair and long gnarly fingernails and all of that stuff. So I wonder if it's more likely that a hag is what you saw. And I'm going to kind of rewind to the beginning of your story where you said that previously a psychic or a Reiki practitioner referred to you as a star child. And I was like, what the heck is a star child? Because I'd never heard of a star child before. So I had to look it up, and I'm gonna read it to people who don't know also what a star child is. So star children are individuals that originate from far distant planets, solar systems and galaxies. Many of them have led previous lives within other star systems. And I'm going to read to you 12 signs that you are a star child. Number 1, psychic abilities. Number 2, deep thinkers from a young age. Number 3, high energy levels. Number 4, they remember their past lives. Number 5, they're spiritual but not religious. Number 6, they are empaths. Number 7, they are into alternative medicine or have abilities within alternative medicine. Number 8, improved DNA. I don't know how the heck do you prove that one? Allegedly, they have something called a crystal gene, which allows clearer guidance with beings on other dimensions. Number 9, they have a love for animals and nature. Number 10, they have a unique physical appearance. For example, elongated necks, compelling eyes, atypical body structure, etc. Number 11, they help humanity. And number 12, they just feel different. And I'd imagine this is kind of along the same lines as indigo children, or what people refer to as indigo children. Sorry, that was just an interesting little segue that came from this story. And whatever was in this house, whether it was the hag entity or whatever it was that kept you out of the house, that felt like a real show of power there. That it was like keeping the door locked and then only letting you in when it felt like it wanted to let you in. That's a big old power flex there, I think. And story number 2 comes from Anonymous. I will start off by saying that I have never been someone who was attuned to the supernatural, and I still am not. And quite frankly, I would like to keep it that way. I loved hearing spooky stories and still do, but nothing had ever happened to me until these 2 instances. I like to consider myself an open-minded skeptic. While I tend to favour scientific explanations for things, I do believe there are some things in my human experience that I will never understand or know. My first experience happened when I was in my teenage years in my childhood home, and it is the scariest one to me because I simply cannot conjure up a logical explanation for it, and I feel crazy whenever I tell it. It was on a weekend, or at least I was not attending school that day, and the only people that were home were me, my mother and my dog. My mother was on the other side of the house from me, which is where her bedroom is. I was on the side of the house in my room. My bedroom was located at the end of a hallway, and in that hallway were 2 other rooms. And the hallway ended and opened up into my living room. Those 2 other rooms were a guest bedroom and a room converted into a home office. The office was the farthest room from my bedroom, and for some reason, ever since I was a child, I just had a weird feeling about the room and didn't like to be in it. On this day, I was in my room when I decided to get up and either head to the kitchen for a snack or just to see what my mom was up to. I remember walking down the hallway towards the living room. This is where the story gets muddy in my memory. For some reason, the next thing I can remember is my whole body being turned towards the office. The office had the lights off and the door was open. I was all of a sudden either standing a step inside the room or right next to the threshold of the room about to enter. This did not make any sense because I did not need anything from the office and had no business standing inside a dark room for no reason. But this is where I remember seeing what I saw. In the middle of the room, floating in mid-air, a bit below my eye level, was a pink glowing orb. As soon as my eyes and mind registered what I was seeing, it felt like a millisecond later the orb somehow registered it was being seen and was startled. It wobbled a bit with surprise in the air and went right towards me. The orb flew right towards my stomach and went around the right side of me. And as I turned around to my right following it, it disappeared behind me by the time I had turned all the way around. As it was moving, it had a trail of pink light moving behind it. The only way I can describe it is like the bikes having a trail of light behind them in the movie Tron. And that was it. It just disappeared and I stood there in shock, not believing what I had just seen. I was fully awake, it was the middle of the day, and I have never had a hallucination in my life. I turned around and went straight back into my bedroom. The weird thing about it, though, was that I was not even scared, but more just intrigued and confused. If anything, I felt a little bad for the orb because it felt like I startled or scared it by perceiving it. I always believed that if I were to have ever experienced anything supernatural, that I would be terrified and have a heart attack and die probably. But instead, I just felt a sort of curious amazement. Probably because I did not sense anything evil or malevolent from the orb. I'm very close with my mom, and usually tell her everything. I was in such shock that I didn't even tell her what I had experienced until probably days later. Most of my friends called me crazy when I told them, because we were all a very academic and scientific-based bunch. But my mom believed me. My second experience was more recent and occurred years later after I had already been out of university for a while. I was working at a medical surgical office at the time, doing a job I really loved during a gap year. And when I say medical office, I don't mean your standard medical office. This was not the usual white-walled, mundane, boring, hospital vibey kind of place. It was a small, family-type establishment that mostly served rural folks and was isolated in the middle of nature in some woods. It had a homey environment, and I and the patients loved it. But I will say, there weren't a lot of lights, and it's not somewhere I would want to be alone at night. A lot of my co-workers who had been working there long before me had spooky stories about hearing random noises upstairs in the early morning when no one else was there, or pots and pans flying off the walls. I had also heard that there was an unsolved murder case in the area years ago, where the body was never found, but the entire area around the office was searched by the police. This just led to a lot of joking around about spooky type things, but I wasn't convinced anything was haunted. Mostly because when I was at work, I was thinking about work. However, during the entire duration I worked there was something that multiple co-workers would separately complain about. They heard someone calling or whispering their name. I laughed it off and said they were hallucinating from being overworked, because it was a high-stress job at times, and hallucinating about hearing your name called wasn't too far off to me. But I did note that it was weird that the same story was being told by and happened to multiple people. Fast forward to my last day of work at this office. My last day of work was not too busy, and I was not tired at all. I was just trying to soak everything in for the final time. I remember walking in the hallway past our kitchen that we had, noting that one of my co-workers, Sadie, was doing the dishes in there. As I just finished walking past the kitchen, I heard a voice that seemed rushed quickly whisper my name in my ear. I was confused and thought Sadie was calling my name. But I thought to myself, why is she whispering? That's odd. Maybe she has something private or secret to tell me. So I walked backwards to Sadie and asked if she called my name. And she just said no. I explained what had happened to her, and Sadie, having worked there for a long time, just laughed and said it was our office ghost, saying goodbye to me, and was probably pissed that I was leaving. While I can brush this off as just a hallucination, I think it was odd that it happened on my last day of work, when I wasn't tired at all, and that it was the same whispered name experience I had heard happening to my other co-workers. I'm doing a lot of Googling in this episode, but apparently pink orbs represent love and peace, and they are very positive in intent, and they might be representative of angels or deceased loved ones or a spirit guide. So, fundamentally it seems pretty positive. Also, things represented by pink orbs are hope, joy, kindness, peace, unconditional love, encouragement, forgiveness, and compassion. So as orbs go, it's pretty positive, right? I mean, the whole experience is crazy. Like, that is wild. To just be bopping along, calling into your mom or going to get a snack or whatever, and then you find yourself in the office for no reason, and this thing is there and is startled by seeing you. What I did enjoy about it, though, is that you just didn't feel fear, that your body wasn't like, oh my God, run, or, you know, your spidey sense wasn't tingling in that way, that you just were like, oh, that's weird, but also doesn't feel terrifying. To me, that is what all ghost encounters should be like. I wonder, was it, you know, a loved one who had passed away, or some spirit guide or something? I'd love to know what it was. And secondly, I don't know what it is about whatever these entities are that be calling out people's names. It just gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't know what I would do if I was sitting here and I heard somebody calling my name within my house. And of course, it's reasonable in a workplace when you see somebody, you see your co-worker doing the dishes or whatever, it's reasonable to assume that it's them, you know, and then it sort of makes it worse when you're like, oh, it wasn't them. Oh, brilliant. Great. Maybe it was annoyed that it was your last day and it was like, hey, excuse me, we all have a good thing going on here, okay? So you need to not leave. Today's episode is sponsored by Uncommon Goods. Spark something uncommon this holiday with just the right gift from Uncommon Goods. Holiday season is almost upon us, I know. It flies around every year, and every year I try and be the best gift giver that I can be. I want to give gifts that spark joy and wonder and delight. I want people to look at the gifts that I get them and think, that is exactly what I wanted. And Uncommon Goods can make the whole process less stressful because they have incredible hand-picked gifts for everyone on your list. Uncommon Goods scour the globe for original, handmade and absolutely remarkable gifts. And I had a good look around the Uncommon Goods website, and there's stuff on there that I really adored. For example, they have a book lover's advent calendar, which is the perfect gift for the book lover in your life. There are also gifts galore for the people in your life who love crafting, or the people in your life who want to get into crafting. There are even a wealth of pickleball related gifts. Now, I didn't know what pickleball was, but now I do, and I'm interested. When you shop at Uncommon Goods, you are supporting artists and small independent businesses. The products are high quality, they are unique, they are often handmade, and they even have gifts that you can personalise. And guess what? With every purchase you make at Uncommon Goods, they give back $1 to a non-profit partner of your choice, and they have donated more than $3 million to date, which is pretty incredible. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/ghoststories. That's uncommongoods.com/ghoststories for 15% off. Do not miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
So good, so good, so good.
Just in and so good. Thousands of winter deals are at Nordstrom Rack stores now, and that means thousands of fresh reasons to rack.
Because we get the latest trends for way less.
Because I've been looking for these.
Because the best deals go fast.
Save big with up to 60% off. Sam Edelman, Sorel, Free People, Cole Haan, and more cold weather finds. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
A little self-care can go a long way, especially amidst the hustle and bustle of the holidays. That's where Vegamore comes in. Trusted by millions, Vegamore is all about giving your hair the love and care it deserves. With their vegan and cruelty-free formulas, you can nourish and revitalize your strands while indulging in some much-needed pampering. Because let's face it, who couldn't use a bit more me time this time of year? Go to vegamore.com/ACAST, code ACAST. That's vegamor.com/ACAST, code ACAST.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, what the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass f- So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes per details.
It took a lifetime to find the person you want to marry. Finding the perfect engagement ring is a lot easier. At BlueNile.com, you can find or design the ring you've always dreamed of with help from Blue Nile's jewelry experts who are on hand 24/7 to answer questions, and the ease and convenience of shopping online. For a limited time, get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com. That's $50 off with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com.
And story number 3 comes from Billi Jo. One of my most prominent experiences with the paranormal happened when I was 23 years old. I was living in a house with 2 other people. May or may not have been a bit of a party house. And that worked for me because I was far too afraid to ever be alone in this house. One night, after a couple of months of hearing footsteps walking down the hall, knowing full well there wasn't anyone there, and feeling weird vibes, the feeling like a cat walking around on my bed when there wasn't a cat. I was laying in bed, not sleeping, just laying there facing the wall, and I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps walking down the hall towards my room. And I heard the steps enter my room. And then my bed dipped down as if someone had sat on the side of my bed. Then I felt someone place a hand on the small of my back. As I whipped round to face whomever had just touched me, there was no one, not a soul in my room nor anyone down the hall. After talking with my roommates, we had all noticed things here or there, weird vibes. One of my roommates thought the best way to fix things was to make a homemade Ouija board with a bottle cap as a planchette. She recorded her Ouija board or seance that she had in the basement. When listening back to the recording, there was a voice that no one recognised. After that night, the atmosphere in our house was so dark, and I couldn't even go into the washroom alone. I had to get a cat just so I didn't feel alone. Luckily, I didn't live there much longer, and just a few months after I left the house, it burnt to the ground. Had my roommate's bad idea set in motion the eventual burning down of the house? One might never know. This episode is full of random asides, and I really apologise, but I absolutely adore the name Billi Jo. And every time I see or hear the name Billi Jo, I immediately recite the opening of the Green Day song Maria every single time. I'll spare you the cringe. I'm not going to do it for you right now, but just wanted to let you know. And this house sounds terrifying, and I can totally understand living in this house and being like, oh, thankfully it's a party house, because when you live in a party house, there's always somebody around, there's always stragglers, there's always stuff going on in the night, and also you can dismiss a lot of things because you're like, oh yeah, there's people staying over. Oh yeah, it's just the footsteps in the hall. Yeah, that's just somebody wandering around in the night, somebody who obviously crashed for the night or whatever. And then when you feel somebody coming into your room and sitting down in your bed and physically touching you, I can only presume that your instant thought is, this is a real person that is doing this. And then you whip around and nobody's bloody there. Oh, it's just such an awful feeling. It's so intrusive, and it feels like even that refuge, that safe space that should be your bedroom, isn't your safe space. Granted, I will say doing a Ouija board in the basement probably wasn't the best idea. In terms of fixing the situation, maybe look up a good cleanse, maybe light some white candles, open the windows, shoo whatever it is out of the house. A Ouija board feels like a terrible idea. And hindsight is always 20/20 and all that jazz, but we've all seen The Exorcist. You use a Ouija board in the basement, next thing you know, you're puking all over priests and your head's spinning around and your house is burning down. And Billi Jo's story is just proof of that. And story number 4 today comes from Lori. I work at a YMCA and did an opening shift for years. I loved walking in and the TVs would be on. It could be tricky getting them all off at night, so that I could deal with okay. One morning though, I walked in and could hear a treadmill running. I could see into the wellness centre as I walked in, yet I didn't notice any lights from the treadmills. I grabbed a broom, went to the door and threw it open. So dramatic. And silence. I turned all the lights on and checked the facility, and nothing. I just got on with my day. Weeks later, and I was in with my daughter because she was going to dye her hair, and I wasn't letting her do that in my white shower. We ended up being there at closing. She was finishing up and the staff working had to leave. I sat at the desk by myself for 5 minutes and then distinctly heard the clang of 2 weight plates hitting each other. And then again. And one more time. I went into wellness, turned the lights on, and nothing. I decided someone hadn't put them away properly and they settled. My daughter came out and we left. In the car, I was telling her about hearing the plates, and she reminded me that we had just replaced all the equipment and the new plates are coated and do not clang. Just another fun day at the Y. Okay, so you've got a fitness-loving ghost. Fair. Although I can't think of anything worse than, you train in your living life. And I make it no secret that I hate it. I hate it so much. I hate the gym. I hate running. But I do it because it's good for my brain. We're not even going to get into that. But imagine having to do it in your afterlife as well. Oh no, I couldn't think of anything worse. Allow me to just go around people's houses, opening up their cupboards and slamming a few doors, flicking light switches on and off. Give me that grace. Don't make me go on the treadmill and lift weights when I'm dead. It is interesting though, to be serious for a second, it's interesting that the sound that you heard was a clanging sound, and then you realise the new plates are all coated. So it's obviously some sort of residual energy, some sort of echo in the building. Maybe somebody passed away and maybe the YMCA meant a lot to them, and that's where those echoes are being lived, or maybe it was to do with energy in the building, and that's why you're hearing those sounds of clanging, and the treadmill is coming on and the TVs are on. Places like that can have a significant impact on people's lives, so maybe that's why it still holds significance for them when they're dead. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Kate, Anonymous, Billi Jo and Lori for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from the 4th of October 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website, reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.